Hello and welcome to our new video. This is the Ninja AF400. We have reviewed this air fryer for you and you'll find out everything you need to know in this video. So just stay tuned. Let's get started with the Ninja AF400. Before we get to the practical part, we'll first give you a brief overview of the product in our features and technology section. The AF400 comes with an output of 2470 watts and has a total capacity of 9.5 liters. This makes the AF400 the largest appliance among the air fryers we tested. A special feature of this air fryer is that there are two compartments, each with a capacity of 4.75 liters, which can be used separately. This means that you can prepare two dishes at the same time and coordinate them with the so-called sync function. Or you can fill both compartments with the same food and run the same settings using the match function. We'll take a closer look at exactly how this works later in the video. 6 predefined programs, known as presets, can be selected via a display which is operated using a dial and buttons. Of course, you can also set the values individually. However, they are linked to a preset. Nevertheless, we have a total temperature range of 40 to 240 degrees Celsius. When the set time is elapsed, you will hear an acoustic signal. As already mentioned, the Ninja's capacity is quite large, which is of course reflected in its measurements. At 33 by 42 centimeters, it is definitely the widest air fryer we reviewed. In terms of its depth, however, at 37 centimeters, it is one of the better appliances. Due to its width, not everyone will be able to find a fitting place for this air fryer. To make it a little easier for customers, the manufacturer has therefore thought of some handles, which can be found at the bottom of the appliance. Otherwise, the air fryer stands securely on non-slip rubber feet and has a slightly short but still sufficiently long cable of approximately 80 centimeters. As a small bonus, the manufacturer also includes a quick start guide with recipe instructions. It contains 18 recipes in total. By the way, you can find all the links in the description below the video. Of course, you will find the product there as well. So much for some general information about the Ninja AF400. Now let's get down to the essentials, namely our practical test. The first thing we want to look at is how to use the device and how to operate it correctly. So let's go through this together. First of all, place the air fryer on a heat-resistant surface, leaving as much space as possible around the appliance itself so that the heat can radiate properly. Then go ahead and clean the appliance once before using it for the first time. You should at least rinse or wipe through the inserts once. Once everything is dry, plug it into the power socket and you can start using it. First, press the on button to switch the appliance on. As the presets on this air fryer are to be understood as default settings, you first have to decide on one of the 6 settings using the control dial. Once you have done this, you can adjust the temperature and time values individually using the up and down buttons. You can also press and hold to change the values more quickly. Unfortunately, the temperature can only be set in 10-degree increments. We would have preferred 5-degree increments. If you also want to operate the second compartment, you have 2 options. Either you press the button labeled Match. This mirrors the settings from the first compartment to the second, which is particularly useful if you want to prepare the same food in both compartments. Or you can press the button labeled 2, select a preset again, and adjust your values if necessary. You normally do this if you want to prepare another dish. To coordinate the timing of the 2 compartments, you can press the button labeled Sync and then start the cooking process. The compartment with the shorter cooking time is then set to Hold and waits until the other compartment has caught up. So much for the operation. But before we get to cooking with this device, I would like to say a quick word about the presets. These presets are generally very helpful if you are not yet very familiar with the appliance, or if you are trying out new products. But don't rely on them too much. Open it from time to time. Take a look. How does it look, and how does it develop in there? Should you flip it now, or perhaps even set different values to achieve the perfect results? Just remember that the presets are basically only rough guidelines. That means that we didn't rely too much on the predefined programs in our test and preferred to readjust them ourselves if in doubt. This way, the cooking results are generally really good. And this applies to almost all air fryers in our test. Fries get crispy on the outside and fluffy on the inside. You have to be careful that they don't get too dry, but basically you get a good, tasty result. The same applies to chicken nuggets. We also tried it with some chicken wings. We got a very nice result. Everything is cooked through and tastes on point. Vegetables, on the other hand, can be a tricky thing with these air fryers. The hot air dries them out super quickly and then they burn very easily. Our tip: things that you normally cook in the pot should stay in the pot. You can still prepare some veggies if you want something more similar to roasted vegetables, for example, but you definitely need to work with a little additional oil. You should also monitor the cooking status carefully and play with the time and temperature if necessary to get good results. Baking, on the other hand, works pretty well. We tried it out with muffins, and what can we say? They rose well, firm enough on the outside and fluffy on the inside.
Gute
Good cooking
Kochergebnisse.
results.
Ja, was wollen
Well,
wir eigentlich
what more
mehr?
do we actually want?
Im Grunde genommen
Basically,
wollen
we
wir doch
actually wanted
eigentlich
less,
weniger,
namely
nämlich
less
weniger
fat.
Fett.
That's what
Das
the
ist ja das, womit
manufacturers
die
of air
Hersteller
fryers
von
advertise.
Heißluftfritteusen werben. Und das stimmt
And it's
auch.
true.
Dadurch,
By
dass wir das
simply no longer
Bleigut
bathing
einfach
the
nicht mehr
food in
in
fat,
Fett
but cooking it
baden,
with hot air
sondern an heißer
instead,
Luft garen,
we
haben
end
wir
up with
ganz einfach
having less fat
weniger
on the
Fett
product
am
itself.
Produkt.
The
Unterm Strich
bottom
kann man
line
also
is that we
sagen,
can
wir
taste more of
schmecken
the
wieder
food
mehr
again
von
because it is no
Lebensmitteln,
longer
weil
covered
es
in
nicht mehr
fat.
mit Fett übertüncht wird.
Well, okay, but what about the handling? Is it even practical to use an air fryer? Basically, it depends on the appliance and your needs. The AF400 comes with two drawers, each consisting of a tray and a crisper plate. The advantage of such drawers is that you can turn the food more easily than in a conventional oven. As the two drawers also weigh relatively little on their own, you don't have to exert yourself too much when turning your food with the AF400. It is also helpful that the basket completely encloses the tray so that no crumbs or similar are scattered around the kitchen when shaking. In addition, the crisper plates sit relatively firmly in the tray and do not fly around, or at least not so easily, when turning your food. The appliance also stops when the tray is removed, which makes handling even more convenient. If you're worried about your ears falling off, you don't need to worry too much with this appliance. In our test, the air fryer was about as loud as most other appliances at around 60 decibels. However, you should take a closer look at the heat development. The handles remain cool, as does the upper part of the casing. However, it does get quite hot in the lower area, and the drawers in particular take in a lot of the heat as well. There are also two ventilation slots on the back that emit hot air. Of course, you have to be a little careful here. And as a reminder, you can find the link to the product in the description below the video. And if the video was helpful to you, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Visually, the air fryer makes a coherent impression from our point of view. Only the chrome frame at the top of the appliance seems not that appealing. However, we also found this to be less pleasing on the previous model, the AF300. In terms of workmanship, however, the AF400 is slightly better than its predecessor. The gap dimensions feel a little tighter, and the controls also look a little better. The display is a little wavy, but generally cleanly framed. The whole thing is made of a matte synthetic material, which makes a good impression both visually and to the touch. When it comes to cleaning the air fryer, you should first allow the appliance to cool down sufficiently to allow it to be handled safely. Then put the removable parts, in other words, the trays and the crisper plates, in the dishwasher. Treat the casing with a damp cloth. Let's come to the conclusion. With the Ninja AF400 air fryer, you'll get an appliance in the higher price range that offers a solid performance and a high degree of practicality. Admittedly, it takes up a lot of space, and we would have hoped for a little more here and there in terms of workmanship. But that's about it. There's nothing else to complain about. The two-compartment concept, in particular, offers a lot of flexibility when cooking and is therefore very useful for families with children, for example. So if you're looking for a practical appliance which is suited for your whole family and want to cook certain quantities, the AF400 definitely seems like a good choice.
So,
So,
diese
we checked out this air
Heißluftfritteuse habe
fryer
ich
for
für
you.
euch getestet. Wenn euch
If
das
you are
Produkt
interested in the
besonders
product,
interessiert, dann
take
schaut
a
doch
look at the
unten in die
description below the
Videobeschreibung,
video.
denn dort
You'll
ist das
find all
Gerät
the
für euch
links
nochmal
there.
verlinkt. Ansonsten
Otherwise,
würde
stay
mich freuen, wenn
tuned.
ihr eben noch
Our
dran
end card will
bleibt,
provide a
denn
few
im
interesting
Anschluss
suggestions
folgt
for
die
you.
Endcard mit ein paar interessanten Videovorschlägen.